Hello my fellow hammerheads and welcome to the last lore part for the Idoneth Deepkin. In this video we will cover the important persons, the military structure and the enclaves of our underwater friends. Before we begin, I recommend that you buy and read this battle tome and the stories for yourself, because only this way we can support Games Workshop, their authors and the Black Library. And you can also enjoy the unabridged stories for yourself. And as always, I will add the faction-specific terminology and the sources in the description box down below. Now, I won't waste any more of your time. Let's begin. Hello again, my friend. I see you were unharmed by our guests last time. I'm sorry, but I couldn't warn you. Otherwise, they would have known that we are aware of them. But as soon as our underwater friends saw who their quarry was, they apologized and retreated back to their deep and dark dwellings. I used the opportunity and approached their leader of the phalanx. She was an Isharan soulrender, and she told me that they originated from Ionrach. With a little persuasion, I convinced her to take me with her so I can learn more about the enclaves, their hierarchy and important people. With this you shall know that I have information to share. Information which not many citizens of the mortal realms are aware of. I guess you can say that the beings I want to talk about are the most important in all the enclaves. But this is just a point of view and a matter of time, is it not? As usual, I prepared a note for you with all the Idoneth-specific terminologies under my table. Look at them if you have the need. First of all, let me tell you about the enclaves. There are 6, which you can call the main enclaves. Of course, there are countless others in the depths of the seas. The mortal realms are immense in size, and the places to hide are innumerous. Enclaves are comparable to different nations with their own traditions and cultures. The most influential is the one called Ionrach. Led by High King Volturnos, the Ionrachs are the strongest, the first among their kind, and the most helpful allies to all armies of order. Teclis' vision of the elves of old came closest with the Cythai, whom themselves now call the Ionrach. Bright-eyed, noble, honorable, and pretty easy on the eyes, I might add. But true beauty is still on the inside, and with all the Idoneth, these elves are unbearable to look at. After fleeing from Teclis and the shattering of the Cythai into different groups, it was the Ionrach who suggested periodic meetings which we now know as Assembrals. Their main city lies in Ghyran. Strong in magic, they were the first to discover the secrets of the souls. On the other side of the spectrum is the enclave called Dhom-Hain. Fierce and proud, relying on their own skill, they avoid the Assembrals. Their main settlement lies in Gur, the realm of beasts. The sea is filled with horrific monsters, which many humans call nightmare fuel. They ventured into the uncharted depths, and they took the name of Dhom-Hain, which means deep questor. Even after the death of over half of their original population due to the creature attacks, they were too proud to seek aid. After a while, they discovered the Black Throw, a trench in the deepest part of the Ominot Sea. Here they did build their capital Briomdar, the secret city. The Isharans of the Dhom-Hain were the first to acquire the knowledge of coral shaping. Fortune favors the bold, and more so the enclave of Fuethán. Impulsive, aggressive, and quick to anger, the Cythai of this enclave fled from the fiery anger of Teclis to the realm of fire itself. Akshi itself called to them and their hot-tempered souls. I heard a rumor that they are to blame for the longest civil war between their watery kin. Apparently, it took about 2 centuries to regain a state of peace between the involving enclaves. Constantly raiding, even after they met their goal, they kill everything and everyone, even the women and children, while other enclaves leave them be. Their embalers seek to enslave the fiercest beasts of the sea, the ones who are driven into a frenzy upon a tiny scent of blood in the water. The far more sinister enclave, which resides in the realm of death, Shaiish, is Mor'phann. I think they are very gloomy, even for the Idoneth. Residing in what seems like oily waters, you cannot fault them for their way of living. The Isharans are particularly adept at soul magic. Their soul renders are able to raise Namatai as the blow falls upon them, and the tidecasters can chill their enemies to the bones. Usually I only heard tales of horror if someone should survive, but to see them burn their skin with the mists, I believed them. After the Skaven had drained the Fuathtar Sea, destroyed their city Eymar, and revealed them to Nagash, they had to defend their secret city Mor'draki. Tenacious and masters of manipulating the form of shell are the Nautilar. After a prolonged war against the wretched Skaven, they still are a people who remain steadfast. Their capital, Galanaur, was established by the Ionrach in Ghyran upon the back of a great Scafardon, a beast so immense that the Idoneth were able to create the greatest city upon its shell with the endless amount of resources to work with. They formed a symbiotic relationship with the great beast and mastered the art of the fighting withdrawal. But now, after the war with the Redkin, who dug themselves into the shell of the Scafardon, they ceased with their expansion in favor of defending their city and the beast. Ah, the last enclave, Briomdar. I call them the hopeful ones. Mighty Isharans are at work there, I tell you. Led by Queen Laramay, they claim to have unlocked several secrets that might revitalize the Idoneth race, but we will have to wait and see for that, as the health of the Queen deteriorates. In the claustrophobic confines of Ghyran, they built a citadel of wood, called Cranstock. Able to navigate the densest terrain, they penetrate deep into the forests of Ghyran. Their soul squires are more skilled in finding and evaluating souls than any other Isharan. I still have more to tell you about the Briomdar enclave, but this will have to wait for another time. With all the diverse enclaves and the few common habits, they have one thing which identifies them as the raiders of souls for which we know them: their military structure. They call their armies phalanxes. Defenders of the enclaves, raiders of towns and cities, they follow a strict hierarchy. Their leadership triumvirate, a soul warden and the troops. The triumvirate is known as the Royal Council, containing an Achillean king or queen, accompanied by a tidecaster and a soul scryer. The soul warden stands apart from the phalanxes and is in charge of logistics and liaises with the Incubati and the soul scryers. I'm told that they can see how fast an Namatai soul is withering away and how many new souls are required to cover the demand. The largest part of the phalanx, of course, is composed by the troops, namely Achilleans and Namatai. But I told you about them in an earlier meeting. Each type is divided into 3 battalions, in which the first one contains the most experienced fighters and the last the new and unproven warriors. But not all of them fight at the same time. At least one battalion stays behind to defend the garrisons or cities. Before we conclude our meeting, I have to tell you about 3 certain individuals. The first one being the most famous Isheran in every underwater city. Lotann, Warden of the Soul Ledgers. As Lotann was granted the title Warden of the Soul Ledgers, he began to aid all enclaves of the Idoneth. Mathematician and obsessed with his work, he accompanied phalanxes into battle to write down every soul gathered, lost or missed. As he is no warrior, he has a quill with which he can stab you. But there is a familiar with him, an octar. Usually it helps him count, but when an enemy draws closer, it will defend him with blade and cudgel. As for the kings and queens of the enclaves, they are elected by the Martial Council and can be Archelians or Isherans. Whatsoever, it is not unusual to take a Namatai as a betrothed in this position. Usually they are the strongest in their field, mighty warriors or spellcasters. The duties of an Archelian king lies in coordinating attacks or leading the defense of their strongholds. It is a privilege and tradition to ride to war upon the rare beasts called deep mare, and to be equipped with a shield and either a Rhomphaia or an Astra Trom. Some of them discard their shield and use a weapon in each hand, but this is personal preference. As skilled statesmen, proven warriors, and tactical masterminds, they have to inspire their troops and lead them from the front, because no one holds his position for long if you let others fight your battles. But again, you won't hold your position for too long as well, if you are too stubborn to admit defeat and die on the battlefield. Greatest of them all is High King Volturnos, the last of the Cythai and undisputed leader of the Ionrach enclave. He is by far the oldest of the Idoneth Deepkin, and a very good friend of mine. During the Age of Myth, he was gifted the Eolas. Fun fact: as one of the first to populate the underwater kingdoms, he had to learn to see in total darkness and in the depth of the sea. Even after they escaped from Teclis, he already had quite the reputation among his people as a fighter and leader. Volturnos earned his kingship as he defeated the Aurochs of the Flotsam Islands, as many of his original siblings died in battle or fell prey to the beasts of the sea. A few of them died of old age. Yet Volturnos lives to this day. Apparently, his soul was the first one to be siphoned out of Slaanesh's belly, and was made to be the archetype of the new elven race. But not all believe this story. He reinforced the besieged enclave of Briomdar in the Green Gulch and defeated 3 great unclean ones. Even then, the vile forces of Tzeentch tampered with many worldways and created new ways for demons to invade the mortal realms. The Idoneth banded together to close these portals to this day. Volturnos was the one who pleaded for an alliance between the Idoneth and Sigmar's storm hosts. But ultimately he was overruled by the Assembrals, and the Realmgate Wars were fought without almost no help from the underwater elves. Still, he is respected as a king of renown, and the Ionrach and their branches hold a day of remembrance for the ambush of the Umbral Sea, in which the Mask lured Volturnos with a sinister plan in a trap, and in the coming battle he lost an eye but escaped with his life. He has 2 very unique items in his possession, for which every Lumineth would kill to have at least one of them. 2 gifts by Teclis himself: the Astra Solus, the Blade of Light, Enclaves, the High King's shield. Obviously very precious to the elven kin. The last one I want to talk about is by far the most important to the Idoneth. It is Mathlann, a dead god, the protector of the Idoneth. As he is the one responsible for the elves of old to survive as long as they did, and to be devoured last by Slaanesh, he has no avatar. It is more a manifestation of the fallen god. The collected Idoneth souls from the Chorrileium are able to manifest as almost anything, but it is to no surprise that they manifest the being responsible for their nature, as each dead soul gives a portion of their spirit. These portions are bound together by willpower and need. They form an own consciousness, and at first this process is only visible to the Idoneth, those blessed with witch sight, or me. I discovered two distinct different incarnations. Each one is influential by the collective psyche. In the aspect of the storm, the sea taketh. The time for rage and revenge creates this Eidolon, and it shows the power of the sea as a destroyer. More Achillean than Isharan, wielding a mighty Fuathtar and a barbed cruel hook, it floods the enemy again and again, blind in its fury, active and violent. In the aspect of the sea bringeth, more tame and controlled than the rage-driven counterpart. The Eidolon is a manifestation of more Isharans than Achilleans. A masterful mystic, he summons sea mists to conceal the Idoneth or trap their enemies in a deep slumber. After a battle, the souls are brought back to the Chorrileium and put back to rest. However, if the physical form should be destroyed and no soul render is nearby to collect the most of soul stuff, then, my friend, they are lost forever. I hope I was able to illuminate you about the Idoneth. I'm keen to know what you think about our underwater friends. Just leave me a note under my table. I will read it as soon as I have the time. I hope you will lend your ear to my stories again. I have many more for you to quench your thirst for knowledge. You just have to listen for the bell, and you will know that I'm here again, waiting for you. Have a good night, friend, and please, stay fantastic. Bye.